Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome to the stream. Welcome here on the pre-show. Thanks to reversalgg for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm a Sephiblack. I'm a very old Tekken player, basically playing competitive Tekken for over 10 years. And for Tekken 8, I'm playing Shaheen. Usually I played Miguel, but in Tekken 8, he's not there, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm gonna show you the most important things with Shaheen, but we're switching characters here and there because every character has different movement and different properties for that. Like in Tekken 8, since it's a 3D fighting game, you have different movement. You can go forward, you can go back, you can press up to sidestep or sidewalk, or you press down for sidestep or sidewalk. There are two sides. Like player 1 is the left side, player 2 is the right side usually. Online you can play on, both players can play on one side, and if you press back or 2 times back, you will do a backdash. It's called backdash. You do a bigger step backward, so you can create some situations where the opponent's attack can whiff or create distance. We're talking right now about player 1. Player 2, it would be the opposite input. Like, for example, if I'm playing left on player 2, I'm dashing forward. And dashing forward is basically going towards your opponent to close the gap and be more aggressive. If you tap up, you're sidestepping away from the screen. Depending on player 1 or player 2, if you press up, if you're player 1 basically, you're stepping to the left. If you press down, you're stepping to the right or in the screen basically. Let's switch side. Like if I'm player 2, I'm pressing up. Usually I'm sidestepping to the right, just tapping up or tapping down. And when I tap down, like a sidestep left way. If you press 2 times up and hold it, you will do sidewalk. The same goes for down. If you press 2 times down, you're sidewalking into the right when you play 1. And vice versa on player 2 side. Like, some people might, flash you with this knowledge check by pressing down or holding down or holding up. Like, you don't need to know it, you don't need to implement it, but you should have, you should know that this exists. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a big difference to the 2D fighting games, I would say. The Korean backdash later, which is also a technique to create faster, to do faster backdashes or cancel basically your backdash. When you press back, or when you hold back, better said, you're walking slowly backwards. If you compare the speed of creating distance with the character by holding back compared to Korean backdash, the speed is something different with the Korean backdash. So this is a technique that can be very useful but requires some practice. The idea of the Korean backdash is basically first pressing back. Let's start it again. Back, down, back. So you are crouched. This is very slow motion. Very slow version. When you are crouched, you need to release the crouch or the down back into pressing back again. So this backdash input will happen. or should happen. Let's do it again in very slow motion. Back, back, down, back, release, back. The neutral is important during the release of down, back. Let me show it again. Release, like, back, back, into this. While the back input of the down, back input is still like recognized of the game, you just need to press one more time back to create a backdash. What I would recommend for the beginning is to start slowly with maximum 2 backdashes. It's not important that you do it fast at the beginning. It's important that you do it clean, because you don't want to be in crouch for a very long time. You want to do it fast. So practicing it slowly with 1 or 2 backdashes is very helpful. Now we're talking about down back and down forward. Like when you press down back, you're encrouched, basically. Encrouched, when you hold down back, you're blocking lows and low strings. When you just press down, you can block lows, but not always low strings. There's a difference on blocking lows and low strings. Down forward puts you also in crouch, and usually when a low is coming, when you tap down forward before the low set, you're activating the low parry. With the low parry, you can combo your opponent, which is also very useful against lows that are safe. Some of these lows the lows that are existing in Tekken 8 are safe. Like one of the few first things that I would recommend players to learn are combos, though. If you want to, or like holding back. No, this is something we didn't cover. Holding back is also very important, because people, when I taught already people who had no clue about this game how to deal with things, and they didn't know how to block. If you want to block in general, there are 2 types of blocking attacks. When you hold back, you usually block highs and mids, and then we're covering also the attack properties. High, there are 3 types of it: high, mids, and lows. If you want to block highs and mids, usually you're just holding back, because when you hold back, people can't hit you. So this is something, if someone is bothering you, holding back can be very useful. Imagine someone is attacking you like this. Holding back is your lifesaver, basically. Or tapping. Even neutral, if you would do nothing, can block attacks of your opponent, highs and mids. But then there might be something else happening. A low. If someone adds a low in this game and you're holding back, he hits me when I hold back. So you can't block the low. If you want to beat or cover that, or to block that low, you should hold down back. If you have read or prediction that a low is coming. Because when you hold down back, you're in crouch. And when you're in crouch, usually you can avoid highs. As you can see, the high jab of hold is whiffing, and you block the low. So it's pretty good to cover 2 options. The same idea is holding back and covering the high and mid option, but not the low option. The problem though is when you're crouched, you're vulnerable for other moves, like mids. You're committing to duck the highs and block the low, but then you will eat, for example, that food. So it also takes a risk, what I want to say about it. So be careful on how to block things. Let's talk about the frames. Frames are basically the speed or the time of the game, because every action that exists in Tekken has a speed or requires time. For example, if I'm moving, if I'm pressing, if I'm do any attack, Tekken players, or it's common to describe it as frames. For the fastest attacks usually are 10 frames, and these are jabs like left punch, right punch, and usually people describe the speed of attacks by saying the frames. If you're hearing numbers of people saying this is 15 frame fast, usually it's the speed of the attack. And usually the fastest attack is 10 frame, but and the launchers, which puts the opponents in the air, are 15 frames. For example, Brian's Y71 is like 15 frame launcher. His unique launcher is Sephiblack 2, which is a 14 frame launcher. It's very uncommon to have launchers like that. And everything below that, like 13 frame, 12 frame, 11 frame, 10 frame, are common. On hits and on block, they do also have different properties. For example, then the advantage is important. That's what we call the frame advantage. A jab is 10 frame fast, but it's also +1 on block. So it's fastest attack in the game, and its unique property, it's even +1 on block. Which means if they would do another jab immediately, my jab would lose. Let me show you that. So basically we're both doing the same attack, or the same speed of the attack. But he is doing, since he's +1, he has 1 frame advantage. I don't win. If he would hit me, he's even +8, which would lead him to bigger frame advantages in mind games. Not all attacks on block are like the jab. For example, if Paul would press 1-2, or any character would press 1-2, they're usually on minus frames. This puts the character in another situation, which means, let's do it like 1-2 into 1-2. Since he's -3, I will be faster with my jab. He's losing his frame advantage. He's on a disadvantage, basically. On a disadvantage, like -3, I can attack with 10 frames. Or even 12 frame attacks. And I'm still faster. If I would do 13 frame, we would trade, since then we're equal from the frames. So depending on the speed of attack, on hit or on block, the situation looks completely different from the character. And everything that a character does requires frames. For example, a rage art, let's set it up, also has a different, it's 20 frames. So everything is settled. And when you see like on this the numbers behind 20, like 12, for example here, 16 till 80, it has so many active frames. Like forward 3 in this case has 3 active frames. It can happen at the 16th frame, it can happen at the 17th frame, or at the 18th frame. While other attacks like jab or the rage art only have 1 or 2 frames. This has 1 frame, this has 3 frames as well. This has 1 frame, 1 frame, 2 frames. So every frame attack has different active frames. So the speed for that is also important. Usually, yeah, we're talking about block punishment later, but things are usually unsafe when they are at -10. So since jabs are the fastest attack, usually when some attacks are -10, you can punish them with jabs usually. For example, this attack on block is -10, which means I can punish him. So if you see the red numbers being on -10 after you block something, you need to find an attack to punish your opponent. Otherwise, it's a wasted opportunity. This is just one example. There are even like crazier, more punishable moves. What I would also like to add in this category is throws. Throws are also very fundamental in this game. The generic throws are having a like homing animation. The homing animation is visible through the greenish line on the hand. Homing is a move that you can't sidestep. Even if people want to block, or even if people want to walk it, they can't do it. Because the homing... Oops, he's too far away, it's not about it. He's also too far away. Like this. They can't avoid it by walking. Generic throws. How to break throws in general is the other question. Throws, like the one throw in Tekken, the notations, like before we talk about continue that, every button or direction has a shortcut of notation, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the square is 1, which is the left punch. Triangle is 2. Pressing 3 is the left kick or X. And then press 4 for the right kick or circle. You can combine things, and when you want to combine buttons, you usually say you combine it with a plus before between the inputs. For example, 1 plus 3 is this attack. By pressing 1 and 3 at the same time, 1 plus 3 is happening. 2 plus 4, for example. Or 1 plus 2 and so on. For the directions, we also have notations, which are back, like B, F is for forward, U is for up, and D is for down. Down forward is pressing down and forward at the same time. Usually, if you're saying down forward, you mean pressing down and forward at the same time, like this. But if you want to combine it with attacks, you say plus in between, like 1 plus 3, not 1 3. 1 3 would be 1 into 3, or 1 2, for example. 1 2 is do the attacks in this order. But if you want to say that you combine these two inputs, you're saying 1 plus 2. So this is also important for the notations. If somewhere it's listed an F or an U or an D or an B, in capital letters, it means you need to hold the input. For example, there is an input or there's a notation set forward into 2. Forward capital letters into 2. You need to hold the direction and then press it. Also, this is only for the standing properties. But if you're crouched, there are also different notations you need to know. In crouch, when you're crouched, it means you're full crouched. There's a shortcut for full crouch called FC. So it shows that you're in full crouch. From full crouch, for example, you have access to different attacks. King, for example, have full crouch, down forward 2. While you're in this state, you need to press down forward into 2. Then full crouch down forward 2 will happen. Full crouch down forward 4, for example. Because when I press it from standing, the input is a different one. So you need to be full crouch. Sometimes inputs like this do exist in Tekken. Then you got a different input, which is while standing, or better said, while rising. People usually in the Tekken scene say while standing when they are crouched and stand up. But I think the right notation would be while rising. I don't know why it's implemented like this, but I learned it like this for over 10 years. And it's even the shortcut even is WS. It's not WR, because WR is while running and while running is something else, but we're gonna talk about it soon. While standing for example, would be if you in crouch and release the crouch state. For example, I'm pressing down back and release it 4. Then the while standing 4 will happen. You have access to new attacks when you do inputs like this. When you do input like this. When you're in crouch and release immediately, press immediately the button. For example, in King's case, you got Y standing 4, Y standing 2, Y standing 1, and Y standing 2. Even Y standing 1 plus 2. And so on. This is important to know when your opponent is blocking when you're blocking the mids or avoiding the highs of your opponents by crouch. They're doing 1 into 2. Then you have access when you're ducking, for example, the attacks for your while standing attacks. And punish your opponent. If I would be fast enough, then it would be possible. Let's talk about while rising. While running. I was switching the notations. While running. For King, every character usually has while running moves. While running moves are usually stronger moves than other moves, but do take more time because you need to press 3 times forward, basically. In King's case, he has while running 3. While running 3 is a special move in King's case, like this, which has very good properties, but it's very slow as well. If you press 3 times forward in a fast time, usually while running 3 can come up, like 1 to 3 into this. You can also usually do these attacks while running. Basically, when you press 3 times at least forward, or 2 times into holding forward, you're moving or running toward. And then you can press. Yeah, this is also very useful if you want. Certain characters have very good while running. For example, King's is also pretty good. But the most popular characters, I think, for their while running moves are Claudio. Or for King, yeah, very good mention. It's the wall running grab. Also very fast and high damaging grab. Often. Okay, let's talk about a new thing that Tekken 8 has got implemented, which is chip damage. Chip damage is basically damage that you do to your opponent and can get recovered. In Tekken 8, there is a way to recover your health with certain techniques or with certain moves, but you can also create damage as well, which can get recovered. I will show you an example. Usually attacks on block do recover or do create chip damage. It depends on the attack which attacks do chip damage. Usually stronger attacks do this chip damage. In King's case, I think wall running 3 would be one. Yeah. Like chip damage, even though my opponent is blocking, you see on his bar, his life bar, there's a gray life that's increasing, and his real life is lowering down. This means it's real damage that he lost, but he can recover this gray health. Let me show you that on my side. For example, I got 50 life left, 5 points left, but 180 chip damage life. The more I attack now, the more life I do get back. It doesn't matter if it's on hit or on block. For example, I'm doing 2-1. I got 3 life points back. My opponent's blocking it, right? Or blocked it right now. Let's do it on hit. It's the same. Let's activate heat. It's even more. So basically, when your heat is activated, you get more chip life back. Or gray life, we call it in Tekken 8. So if you want to get fast your gray life back, usually being in heat and attack helps to get gray life back, or activate your heat engager. Heat engager are certain moves that puts you in a really good frame advantage and gives you 30 life points back. In King's case, one of his heat engagers is forward 2-1. See my life bar? It got increased by 30 life points, which is super helpful because having 30 more life out of nowhere is changing the momentum. The same goes for the plus frames I got. Plus 17 and I'm in front of my opponent. So saving up your heat engagers for later moments where you have a lot of gray health can be very helpful. That's why activating your heat at the beginning is something we also cover later on. So, but talking about chip damage, being in heat and do chip or do attacks helps you the most to get gray health back. Usually pokes don't do chip damage. As you can see, he doesn't have any gray life because pokes are having the advantage not to do chip damage on your opponent, while combos are another thing. If I would do a combo, for example, like this, look how much chip damage I created. That's why you need to pay attention or need to keep in mind combos do create more chip damage or gray life. If you would just poke your opponent, then there would be no gray life for them. So this is the advantage you got by just out poking your opponent, then just for looking for combos basically. There are even moves that kills chip damage, but you can also do specific moves with a few characters that can kill the chip damage. Let's say Paul has 50 life points and 100% of chip gray health. In this case, if I would press my gray life killer, which is back 2, it would kill the whole gray life bar. Like I said before, every character has an attack that can kill the gray life. I have switched to another character, a random ass character. For example, Horan, I picked a random character. Not heat, sorry. Rage. If I would activate my rage archer, then you can see the gray life bar, it's gone. Because every rage art kills the gray life bar as well. It's not only the few characters like Shaheen, Nina or Kuma that can do it. Every character has this ability to kill the gray life bar. You need to figure out which characters of you can do this, because there are only a few characters that can do this. The same goes for chip damage. Depending on the attack, you can do chip damage or not. For Horang, I don't know. But for Shaheen, for example, let me switch to my character. He has an attack that does chip damage forward 4, for example. Even though when I'm not in rage, it does chip damage. While running 2, SNK 1+2. So a few attacks. For every character it's a bit different. Let's talk about the new mechanic that exists in Tekken 8, which is heat. I didn't even press it. He activated by himself. How to activate heat first? When you press 2+3, you usually activate heat manually. It's called the heat burst. You see my heat bar, and when I activate it manually, it wastes a bit of my heat bar. So I can so my character can be in the special mode. It has a timer when the heat is vanishing. You see the timer or the heat bar is going down. Yeah, when you hit your opponent while in heat, the timer freezes. The same goes for doing a combo in heat. Usually the heat bar doesn't get reduced when the opponent is in the air. Even if your opponent is on the ground while your heat is activated, your heat bar is not vanishing. So what are the advantages of being in heat? When you're in heat, I said before in the normal state that only a few attacks do chip damage. But in this case, every attack does chip damage. Like single jabs. Let me change this. Look how his life bar is vanishing while blocking. So this is one advantage that exists being in heat. Like doing chip damage all the time, as long as you got heat, you have access to special attacks, which are called heat smash. Heat smashes, usually characters do got one heat smash. Some of them are lows, some of them are mids. When you're in heat, you have access to a heat smash. Shaheen luckily has 2, but usually you pressing 2+3 to activate the heat smash. There's also an command on the controller setup for the heat burst or heat smash. You can press 2+3 to make it manually, or have a bind for heat burst, heat smash. So if I press 2+3, he's activating his heat smash. This means I will lose my heat for this round. So the heat bar is vanishing you don't have heat anymore. But on hit and or block, there are different properties. In Shaheen's case, the regular heat smash is breaking the floor. It even gives a hard wall or ground floor break or floor break. It breaks it immediately. And this makes it a launcher, for example, in this stage. On block, though, it has other properties. Let's do it again. +6, and I'm in the sneak stance. So this is also a good position usually. So heat smashes are usually the rage drives of Tekken 8. In Tekken 7, rage drives did exist, which were launches, usually full launches or wall splats from distance. But since rage drives don't exist in this game, they switched it to heat smashes. And on block, they also gave good properties, so you still have the advantage. Shaheen luckily has 2 heat smashes. Some characters do have 2 heat smashes. How to make this work? It depends on every character, but for him, he needs to be in the stance and then to press 2+3. Then you got a different heat smash, which is the low. But overall, every character has a different strength in heat. For example, Shaheen's strength is to have access to a guard break. The guard break is only accessible during heat, which means like this wastes heat, but even when my opponent is blocking, I can do like crazy stuff like this. If I wouldn't use heat, I still have access to this move, but it's not a guard break anymore. So for every character, every character has specific properties. You need to figure out for every character which properties they have or attacks they have. Let's talk about rage. Rage does also exist in this game. Rage has also a certain, like, you have access on rage when you have a specific point or specific points of life bar, or if you have only 45 life points, you have access to rage. Now it's 43 life points, sorry. It's 43 life points. When you have 43 life points, we need to reduce it for us. Your life bar looks different because then there's a red fire above the life bar. When this happens, you know, okay, I have a specific attack or access to a specific attack, which is Rage Art. What is the advantage of Rage Art? Or what is the property of Rage Art? Let's switch Paul to 100% life. And let's say we have only 1 point. We have only one life point left. This can happen. And let's say we're hitting our opponent with this. Like Kuma has an insane funny Rage Art. Look at the life of how much he loses. Almost 50% of his whole life is gone. And this includes also gray life. The less life you got, like 1 point, life point, the stronger your Rage Art will be. This is something to pay attention and to activate your Rage Art. Let's say you're having like the properties of the Rage Art is 20 frames. You see it from the attack starter frames. It takes 20 frames. It's usually a homing move. A homing move means that you can't step it, but it's not that consistent in this game. You can activate it from crouch as well. The startup frame is 8 frames, and while you're doing this, you're having invincible frames from the 8th frame. Let's say our opponent is attacking with jabs into 1-2. While I'm blocking the first jab, I still can activate my rage art, since it will be activated on the 8th frame, and you can do a comeback with the rage art. Usually rage arts are good to do a comeback, because people should be scared about your way to use rage art, since it's always a good comeback potential to do a comeback. Let's do here. You saw that I absorbed attacks of my opponent, but still my attack was the animation still passed. This is something you need to have an eye on. You still lose life. Imagine I would have 1 life point and someone would do this, like the jabs. My character or your character would be dead. Usually, yeah, your opponent would still do damage against you, but you would absorb it, depending on how much life you got, of course. But there is a downside on rage arts. Let's say your opponent is blocking the rage art. Let's say he's just doing a single jab. You're minus 15. See, at this point where it says minus 15, it means your opponent can launch you. We can create this. Let's say my opponent would do this. Then you can launch your opponent usually. If you want to learn fun stuff in the game, combos are a good way to start. Why combos? If you don't know combos, you can't do big damage usually. Big damage can be created by single attacks or by combo starters into a proper combo. For example, okay, let's increase the life bar, otherwise it looks like I don't do damage. Combos. What is the fun part of it? You can, if you don't know combos, you would do stuff like this. And that's it. You know you can launch your opponent, or you can push your opponent in the air. But if you don't know how to utilize that, they do like 24. Imagine you can do crazier stuff. Like this. From 24 to 55. Which is way more rewarding than usually. So you increased the damage output way more. Some people, when I teach people that you can combo, that are very big enough, that you can combo your opponent, they're like, man, isn't it unfair that your opponent can't land on the ground and block? That you're like punishing your opponent without your opponent is not being able to block? Isn't it unfair? And I'm like, no, this is the game basically. Comboing your opponent is very satisfying. Depending on also how big your combo will look like. Because depending on your utilization of moves and the environment, you can create crazy combos. Like what I've showed you now was just a simple combo. You can extend it though. You can create way higher damaging combos. For example, to do more damage, but also to reach the wall. Let me show you a stage which is a good example.
Get ready for the next
like
battle.
if you know the right combos, you can bring your opponent to the end of the stage. For example, I show you a combo. The combo that I showed you, I will show you that again. Here, 55 damage. It's more than I would do some bear attacks, but Now that's satisfying. Let's assume we want to reach the wall. And if you know the combo routes, you can do crazy stuff. Like this. From 55 to 84. Just because you know how to use combos with your character. But how to start a combo is the question. You need to know your launchers. Launchers are safe or unsafe depending on the move. For example, Shaheen is one of the few characters who has a generic down forward 2. Down forward 2 is this normal hit launcher. 15 frame, considered to be fast and safe on block, which means when your opponent blocks it, you can't punish it. So, down forward 2 is one of the main launchers. Otherwise, he has hop kick, his signature hop kick. Good range, 3 active frames. The range is not the best, since it can whiff, like this. But then you got the hop kick, which has better range, but is unsafe on block, -13. So, certain launchers are safe on block, where you can't do anything, or unsafe on block, depending on the move. Blocking that gives Claudio access to punish him. And there are many launchers for every character, but they look different and have different properties. Every character has safe, or usually has safe launchers or unsafe launchers. We're gonna talk about these things on more character-specific topics in the future. Combos. If you're talking about combos, while you're in heat, you have access to heat engages into heat dash. Imagine there are usually 5 heat engager moves that your character has. What are heat engages? Heat engages are usually moves that puts you into heat. In Shaheen's case, for example, it would be up for 1. You see the heat engager animation where he's running to the opponent. You got back 1, SNK 1+2, back 3+4, and down back 2. Usually 5 heat engagers do exist for every character. There are 2 different types of heat engagers though. Or during heat, the properties of the heat engagers have different properties. For example, after down back 2-1, you get a single guaranteed hit. Let me do it like this. Down back 2-1 gives a single guaranteed hit. You can't float your opponent usually. The same goes for back 3+4. Only 1 single hit. The moves like back 1 into forward gives you a full combo. If you press forward after landing a heat engager, you get a full combo. Like back 1 is like this, up for 1 is also like this, and SNK 1+2 is the same. So every attack gives some, there are 2 different types of heat engagers. Launchers or 1 guaranteed follow-up. If you want to whiff punish, also something which is about the punish itself, is the whiff punish. Certain moves are really good for whiff punishing, like long range moves. Hop kick is one of the best whiff punishes in the game because the range is pretty good, the reward is pretty high, and it's not that risky. Which means if someone is blocking it, usually it's not that they can't launch you for that, you know? See, it's still kind of safe. But there are other launchers that are quite unsafe. For example, Twice 2 of Shaheen is the normal hit launcher, but if they would block it, they could punish it. So you need to keep in mind if you want to whiff punish someone, to have a good long range whiff punish. The best would be if it's a launcher. If not, look for its long range. Imagine they would do one, for example, Rising 4. It's a good example. Into 4 would be a good whiff punish, for example. Or 1-2 if you want to have a fast whiff punish. Creating a scenario where your opponent is whiffing, you need to be ready with certain moves to whiff punish them. Since 1-2 doesn't have good recovery, you can look for... does have good recovery, look for fast moves this way. If you have confidence, go for hop kick or something like that. Or down 4-2. I think the most important fun part of Tekken is combos. If you're doing combos, you have access to high damage. If you're landing specific moves, like launchers, depends on your character, it can look different, the launchers. If you're on the wall, you can also land wall splat moves. This is also something very good to know. That it doesn't need to be a launcher to do high damage combos. It needs to be a wall splat move. For example, down for 4-3 of Shaheen. If you would land the wall split, we can also do more damage combos, 70 damage. But you need to know your combo rules, especially on the wall. But depending on the characters, we're gonna cover these topics for every character as well. Like what's the normal combo, the easy combo, medium combo, hard combo, wall split combos, and stuff like that. Yeah, this is more character specific, but these things we're gonna cover in the next pre-show topics. Yeah, I think we're pretty much it. That's pretty much it for today. Yeah, thank you, Reversalgg, for like doing this pre-show. Like we're gonna cover or we're gonna talk about like more specific stuff in the next pre-shows, next Tuesday, 5 p.m.